welcome back to Fantastic Korean Dishes, where we cook up simple but delicious meals. Today we're going to be making Tteok galbi, also known as grilled short rib patties. Now this dish is great for the entire family. It does take a little extra time, but believe me, it is well worth it. It's also a very good dish to serve on special days or on holidays, and literally it'll be one of the first dishes gone on the table. All right, if you're ready, let's get cooking. So for this recipe, you're going to need about 500 grams of short ribs. You're going to put them in a bowl like this with some paper towel on the bottom, and also take another piece of paper towel and just dab the excess blood. Now the reason you want to do this is so that you don't get that gamey, sort of meaty flavor. So for this recipe, you want to be mincing the meat with a knife. If that's too difficult for you, by all means, get it ground at the supermarket. But in order to really retain the texture of the short ribs, I highly, highly recommend you mince the meat at home. So the reason we want to use ribs is because ribs have a good amount of fat, so it's very tender and juicy. And you don't want the patties to be dry, so you definitely want to be using ribs for this recipe. And then after you've minced the meat, what I like to do is grab another knife and just give them another pounding with the knife, and what that's going to do is just tenderize everything. Next, we're going to need about 100 grams of green onion, or this is actually an Asian leek, but if it's hard for you to find, as long as you go with something that has a similar sort of flavor, like spring onions or green onions are fine, as long as you have about 100 grams. So the reason we're putting the white part into the marinade is because this is the sweetest part. So this will really help to bring out the sweetness of the meat. So I'm just gonna slice through and keep them held together over here. And then we're gonna just chop them finely. And we're gonna go through it one more time, just so we can mince them into even smaller bits. So this portion of the Asian leek, we're going to put on top of the tteok galbi. I'm just gonna slice it right down the middle, just to make it easier to put a grip on it when I cut it. Now, green onions and leeks go so well with meat. It's a perfect combination, actually. So I've cut them thinly, put it in this bowl. Now we're gonna put in some onions into the marinade. Now we're gonna chop them finely. So what I like to do is cut slices down the onion, but not all the way. I leave a little bit so one side of it is holding them together. Cut through the middle one more time. And this is a great way to chop them. Just much faster. Just run through them again one more time with your knife. I'm gonna put that with the meat. Okay, we're gonna add the finely chopped Asian leek. Okay, now we're gonna add in the sauce for the marinade, or the seasoning for the marinade. We're gonna put in 3 tablespoons of soy sauce. Okay, we're gonna put in 1 tablespoon of sugar, or a sweetener of your choice. Just keep in mind how sweet it is in comparison to sugar. And then about a quarter of black pepper. Whenever you're using beef, it's always a good idea to use some black pepper. And then we're gonna put in 1 tablespoon of glutinous rice flour. Now the reason we're putting this in is so that it can really absorb the moisture in the dish, because you don't want it to be too watery. So we're gonna put 1 whole tablespoon of the glutinous rice flour. and about 20 grams of minced garlic. This comes out to maybe about 1 teaspoon, give or take. No, 2 teaspoons, sorry, 2 teaspoons of minced garlic. And then about a tablespoon of sesame seed oil. You can use plastic gloves if you want, but I like to use my bare hands for this, and I'll show you why in just a moment. Just make sure you mix everything well, okay? Once you've mixed in all the ingredients, give it a good massage. Use the palm of your hands to really squeeze the meat, or you can use your knuckle like this. And because we're not really using anything to keep the meat together, what I like to do is just take a big ball like this and pass it from one hand to the other. This kind of takes practice. I wasn't good at this at first, but you'll get the hang of it. And what this does is this really keeps everything together. I'm just going to keep it on the side like that. So there are several ways to cook the meat. First, you can just pop it in the oven and grill it or bake it for about 175 degrees. But today, we're going to fry it on the frying pan. Again, you can put it directly on the frying pan, but another way to do it, which is my favorite way of doing it, is just putting it on a parchment paper or cooking paper like this. This is not waxed at all. You want to make sure you use paper that's not waxed. And I lay it just flat on my cutting board. And I'm going to make a circle. Make a circle right here, and that's going to fit straight onto the frying pan. So I'm going to take my balls. And you want to make sure you keep them as a ball. Otherwise, it's going to fall apart. And this recipe makes 2 patties. You don't want it to be too thick. Now, the reason why I'm using this paper, the cooking paper, is because it just makes the whole cooking process a lot cleaner. You don't have, and it also decreases the likelihood of you burning the meat on the frying pan as well. So that's why I like that. Okay, we're ready to go. Let's put it on the frying pan. We're going to put it on the frying pan. So we're going to start with high heat, and then once you hear the sizzle, you're going to bring it down to a medium heat. And we're going to let that sit. And while that cooks, what you want to be doing is preparing another square or somewhat square piece of cooking paper. And I'm going to show you why in a bit. You're also going to need a plate. So Tteok galbi, or grilled short rib patties, originally were eaten by kings and queens because they thought that it was, you know, not the tidiest way of eating meat, like meat on the bone or meat on the ribs. If you've ever eaten ribs before, you know, you really got to use your teeth and use your hands sometimes. So yeah, so they wanted kings and queens to eat this in a very royal way. So this is why they created this dish. Yeah, it's kind of interesting, huh? So then they can just, you know, cut pieces and just pop it in their mouth. So this is actually a royal dish. So if you're afraid of the meat not cooking fully, what you can do is just put a lid on top, and that's going to help to cook it a lot faster. So you know that it's done when it starts to get brown around the edges and you see a lot of the moisture coming out of the meat. You don't want it to be too wet, so you want it to be tender, also not too dry. So just let the moisture come out naturally. And once it's done on one side, what we're going to do is we're going to lay the paper. We're going to put the plate on top. And be careful you don't burn yourself. Okay, I'm going to flip it. And put it back on the pan the opposite way. That looks so good. Okay, cook it for about another 5 minutes. So it looks ready. I'm going to put it to the side. Now I'm going to cook the sliced green onions or the sliced Asian leek. Okay, so I have a special treat for you. We're going to turn the heat up high, drizzle a bit of oil, maybe about half a tablespoon to a tablespoon. Heat up the pan. Now you have to put green onions in this recipe. It just makes it so delicious. I'm going to hear it sizzle. And you're going to stir it. And stir fry it for a few seconds, about 20 to 30 seconds. The heat down a little bit because I don't want the green onions to burn. And then I'm going to take a torch. So you can do this at home if you have a torch and if you are an adult. So what I like to do is just kind of give it a quick kind of burn on the top. Okay? And that's going to give it a delicious smoked flavor. That looks so good. But you know what? If you don't have a torch at home, don't worry about it. You can skip this step. This is just like a bonus. Okay, I'm going to turn it off. And I'm going to garnish the green onions on top, but right in the middle. Like that. Okay. We're going to plate it now. Okay, so I like to put the entire paper on top of the plate. You might think it's not going to look nice, but it actually looks really good. Okay, there it is. Looks so good. Believe me, your family is going to devour this dish. Okay, let's give it a taste. So I'm going to take my chopsticks. And tteok galbi is really easy to just break off. Hence, it is a royal dish because it requires very little work to eat. So juicy, so tender, savory, and a little bit of sweetness. So good, perfect. So I hope you guys enjoy this recipe. If you have a loved one's birthday coming up or a special holiday, definitely try serving this at home. Yeah, give it a try. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for joining me. Stay happy, stay healthy, and I will see you again very soon with another fantastic dish. Bye!